the International Labor Organization, and greetings from the Cooperatives Unit in Geneva. Allow me to thank Roberta for inviting me to share my thoughts on cooperative identity. Having spent 3 years in Napoli as a child and my graduate studies, 1 year in Bologna, Italy in general, and Bologna are in particular very close to my heart. I'm therefore sorry not to be able to join you in person, but only through video message. As some of you may know, I'm a Turkish economist. I have been heading the Cooperatives Unit of the ILO for the past 11 years. And this is the unit responsible for the ILO's work on the cooperatives and the wider social and solidarity economy portfolio. I started, in fact, during the United Nations International Year of Cooperatives, and the dynamics then was that the world was reawakening to the relevance of cooperation and the values of and principles of cooperatives in the aftermath of the financial crisis. And the cooperative researchers were documenting the ways cooperatives in different sectors, mutuals were shielding their members and users from undue risk around the crisis. At the same time, a related and parallel trend was evolving, and that was the growing enthusiasm around the wider social and solidarity economy. For me, it was always very clear cooperatives were a key building block for the social and solidarity economy. And I don't mean this only because cooperatives are one of the organizational forms that go under the social and solidarity economy in the laws, policies, and de facto in reality. But I was always convinced that what makes cooperatives unique as an organizational form is in their identity, meaning their values and principles. And the way I also chose to engage with the social and solidarity economy was very similar. What are the values and principles driving it? And how are they then also similar and different from those of cooperatives? Is a question. As you may know, last year, the International Labour Conference has adopted a resolution on decent work in the social and solidarity economy, and their social and solidarity economy definition based on values and principles was discussed in a tripartite setting and agreed upon by the 187 members of the International Labour Organization. And when we were looking at the values and principles, we looked at more than 27 countries that had adopted SSE legislation at the national and local levels. These provided us great insights, and Italy, of course, is a very important example, not only for the leading role it plays on cooperatives and the innovative legislation around cooperatives, but also around fair trade, ethical banking, and the social and solidarity experiences at the local levels like Emilia-Romagna, but across the nation. In my view, the way forward for the cooperative movement is not so much about a change in identity, but more about a shift in perspective and attitude with respect to others who share similar values and perspectives. When we were preparing, as I said, for the discussion that took place last year, we pulled these principles and values, the principles of voluntary cooperation and mutual aid, democratic and participatory governance, autonomy and independence, primacy of people and social purpose over capital in the distribution and use of surpluses and profits, as well as assets. And when we were looking at the values, and ILO constituents have identified as the values of the social and solidarity economy as those of care for people and planet, equality and fairness, interdependence, self-governance, transparency and accountability, and the attainment of decent work and livelihoods. So these are, as you know, very similar, very close to the cooperative values and principles, overlapping in most cases. I now would like to reflect on the perspective and attitude change that from the cooperative movement and toward the careful opening or a prudent overture to the larger social and solidarity economy. In, I think, Italy, you already have great advancements in this regard, and you have also worked in different international development contexts, advancing cooperative values and principles and working with other social and solidarity economy entities. When I say opening, what do I mean? Opening many of the other forms under the social and solidarity economy that are based on similar values and principles to cooperatives have in fact developed in contexts where cooperative laws may not be up to date or may not be so inclusive. Communities in these contexts who wanted to pursue these values and principles used other forms like associations or foundations or social enterprises. In such contexts, cooperative legislation, of course, need to be updated and become more inclusive. And cooperative movements in these settings need to advocate for such reform, including in partnership with the cooperative movement, the international institutions like the International Labour Organization. And such partnerships are can be activated to support the development of a new generation of cooperative law experts. We really need more cooperative experts that understand also the emerging new generation of cooperatives. The second point I wanted to make is around this overture being cautious and prudent. And what I mean by being cautious and prudent is, in some contexts, the misuse of the cooperative model has created an aversion to the mention of this institutional form, but not to its values and principles. So those values and principles found a way to flourish in other institutional forms of the social and solidarity economy. Such pseudo-cooperative practices have been a concern for the legitimate cooperative movement around the world, including in Italy. And for such contexts, cooperative movement will need to engage with local and national institutions responsible for registration, inspection, and auditing in a systematic way. They will need to engage in putting safeguards in place against the dilution and cooptation of cooperative values and principles. I know there have been such efforts by cooperative movement in Italy. We have, in fact, documented some of these at the ILO, but these need to be disseminated for wider use in other countries struggling. Trade union movements in Italy, Europe, other regions have alerted us at the ILO to pay close attention to the phenomenon of pseudo-cooperative practices. In fact, the ILC resolution on decent work in the social and solidarity economy points out to the importance of combating pseudo-SSE entities and their circumvention of labor and other legislation in violation of workers' rights. And this is also in line with the ILO recommendation 193 on the promotion of cooperatives. I think the wider social and solidarity economy movement can learn from the cooperative movement in how to identify and eliminate such false practices from identifying themselves as such. And Italian cooperatives are probably closer than some other countries and regions in reaching out to the wider social and solidarity economy. The co-op movement in your country is cognizant of the need to protect the model from dilution and cooptation, but also the need to reach out to more other like-minded institutions. I also want to say just a few words before closing on young cooperators. Every generation, of course, comes with its different solutions to its own challenges and needs. And for instance, the development of the co-op movement in the social and care services arena has come about in the past 40, 50 years with the widespread recognition for childcare needs of households. And Italy, of course, was very much a lead in this with social cooperatives and the law. Similarly, the use of the community-owned renewable energy cooperatives is a recent phenomenon of the 20 years, or in the digital economy, the use of the cooperative model is even more recent, going back a decade or so with the development of this in the last decade. I know Italy has a great number of youth cooperative initiatives. It's essential as per Cooperative Principle 6 on cooperation between cooperatives that well-established cooperative movement accompanies, helps, incubates, and helps grow these young cooperators initiatives. The world is constantly changing. Naturally, the way the new generations engage with the world is also changing. They are rediscovering cooperative values and principles. They are engaging with it, interpreting it, and adapting it to their needs. And the cooperative movement can share with the new generations how their experiences worked and what were the pitfalls they faced. They may also want to do it with openness, curiosity, and humility to ask questions as to what is it they want to use the cooperative model for. And this is, of course, about cooperative education. Alliances are also very essential with government institutions, international organizations, universities, and the wider social and solidarity economy. So the values and principles and their practical manifestations can be transmitted to the younger generations who do not learn about cooperatives often in their studies. And they need to be not only transmitted in classrooms, but also through internships, apprenticeships, job shadowing, and through communication channels like multimedia, different social media platforms, and digital learning methods. These digital means have gone through a major expansion during the global pandemic, and I know the cooperative movement is keen to make use of them in bigger, better ways. And the cooperative and wider social and solidarity economy movements can collaborate on the education front. The cooperative movement can seize the enthusiasm around the social and solidarity economy to show that their values and principles, with their values and principles, they are ready to engage, take part, and at times also lead. At times, I say lead, because they may not lead all the time. This is because different local, national contexts may need different roles from the cooperative movement to play. So it may be necessary to come to the table with some flexibility. And the role that you play may be different in different realms, whether it's research, statistics, legislation, training, education, inspection, auditing, depending on your unique comparative advantages in each context. So I see a two-pronged approach moving forward globally. First is the cooperative movement to open up, to identify, to reach out to younger generations and to the wider social and solidarity economy. And then the second is for the co-op movement to be, of course, continue to be vigilant about protecting its identity through co-op policy reform, through cooperative education, co-op audits, inspections against pseudo-co-op practices. We have a great deal to learn from the Italian cooperative movement, and there is, of course, a lot of this already happening, and it needs to be further also documented. And the ILO resolution on decent work and the SSC will have an accompanying, in fact, an accompanying 7-year office-wide strategy and action plan, which was adopted in November last year. So as we are implementing, we will continue to look at our friends and allies and partners in the cooperative movement to work together. There are also regional manifestations, of course, of the SSC policies like European Union Action Plan, Africa Region's 10-year strategy. And there is actually a UN resolution on the social and solidarity economy and sustainable development that will be coming up as early as April. There's a core group of member states led by Spain with the support of Chile, France, and Senegal that are working together on this. I see the way forward for cooperative values and principles filled with bright light and great potential in this context. And I wish you successful deliberations during your event. Thank you.